why is spilling the tea biblical? Because essentially that's what Miss Reesa Teesa did. She spilled the tea and it has turned into this global phenomenon. I don't know how long it's going to last, but she is riding that wave. But she's not the only one who's prospered from spilling the tea. We're going to talk about what we can learn from Ms. Reesa Teesa and how spilling the tea can lead to wealth. Hello, everyone. Bernie to here, the Brilliant Solutionist, and I am here to talk about the practical applications of life and business using biblical principles. I talk about these separately that you've probably seen on my channel before, but the more that I learn, the more that I want to bring to you and show you how well they go together and how they're meant to go together, your business and your life. So depending on when you're watching this recording, this is around March 2024, and the world has gone viral with the story of Miss Reesa Teesa. Now, I didn't get into the full story. I just know bits and pieces. But as I was watching what was happening with her in real life and studying the Bible, there's something that came to my mind, and we're going to talk about that. Now, I'm just going to tell you up front, you may not be able to connect the dots early on, but stick with me, and I promise you that you will see it if you open up your mind and follow along. Okay. Now, before you get into it, this is not one of those to where go share your business and riches are going to come to you. That's not what I'm talking about. But there is something to you sharing what you've gone through that could potentially lead to a better financial situation than what you're in. But I don't want that to be the goal. I'm not sure if that was Ms. Reesa Teesa's goal. I'm thinking that she either wanted to get off her chest or to share and let it be a warning to other people, but we'll get into that. So I am doing a 6-part series after this about, if you see me looking down, my background is an educator. In case you didn't know that, if you're new to me, I have a lot of videos on the channel so you can get caught up to speed. So I have my notes here, and when I'm teaching, I don't want to always go off the top of my head and show that I actually do prepare for what I am talking about. So I'm doing a 6-part series on developing your skills that will lead to understanding how all of this works. It's a 6-part series. We talk about 6 skills, and then you will be able to see the next steps after that. But during those videos, I am going to really teach you something that you can say, I need to probably up level that, and go and start spilling your tea the right way. So what is wealth? Before we get started, wealth is defined as an abundance of valuable possessions or money, the state of being rich or material prosperity. It means plentiful supplies of a particular resource. So before we even get started, I want you to get whatever's in your mind about wealth is not good. I don't want to be wealthy, or only certain people can be wealthy. Wealthy is relative, but it is an abundance of resources, and resources a lot of times are tangible. But when we talk about prosperity, it is also the intangible things, your well-being, your relationships, your family, and all of those things. But both of those are important. So prosperity is tangible and intangible. So keep that in mind. So if you're having any feeling about money or wealth, check yourself. And if you want to know how to let that feeling subside so you can actually obtain your wealth, stick with me. But I wanted to let you know what wealth is. Now, society says wealth measures the value of all assets worth owned by a person, community, company, or a country. So as we're going through this, I want you to look at yourself as your company or country, because you are not just responsible for yourself. So wealth is not just for you to store up and just splurge on all the things that you want. It is for you to provide things out for other people. It's supposed to have a domino effect or a ripple effect. So wealth is not just for you. You should be able to enjoy it. That's why part of prosperity is health, because like, what's the point of having all of these tangible resources and you can't enjoy them? And then on the other part of that, what is the point of living a really good life, like healthy wise, but you can't serve, help, and do the things you want to do for your friends, family, and community? Now, again, before we get into what all of this have to do with Miss Reesa Teesa and the biblical lesson I'm going to tie this to, I want you to clear your mind to say it is biblical that you are supposed to have wealth. Now, if you are a Christian like I am, we definitely are supposed to have wealth because it is a spiritual law and it tells us. And that is why I am coming to you to really talking more about life and business principles through practical applications using Bible lessons, because I have been in church all my life, and the discovery of spiritual laws, and I'll leave it right there, has really blown my mind. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm going to share with you a lot over, multiple videos and things like that. All right. So Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 12, this is in the King James Version. It says, "For wisdom is a defense and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it." So it is wisdom and it is money, wealth. King James says money. You'll see in other places it'll say wealth. So wisdom and wealth or money, they are a defense. You can have wisdom and you can have a good life. You can have money and have a good life. But both of those together is going to let you have the abundant, full life that we were created to have. Now, in the Message version, it says wisdom is better when it is paired with money, especially if you get both while you're still living. Double protection, wisdom and wealth, plus the bonus of wisdom energizes its owner. So take some time and do your own word study about that. But I just want to show you that having wealth and wisdom is a spiritual law and it provides protection. And we'll get more into that. So you're probably saying, you're talking about wealth and then you started off with Reese Teesa and you're talking about spilling the tea. What does that have to do with all of that? Short version, she shared her wisdom and now she's obtaining wealth, whether that's through fame, influence, impact, or tangible resources. I think somewhere she was actually paid a certain amount, which was in the high five figures, and it's probably more at the time of this recording or whenever you are watching it beyond. So she shared her wisdom and it led to wealth. Her spilling her tea the way she did is leading to wealth. But I just want, when we read the story, I want to give you a disclaimer that I'm not saying go out there and tell all your business, because that is not wisdom. And just telling your business or making up things, I don't know if she made up or not. Some people are saying she is, but for somebody that can make 50 something parts, or I think when somebody put it together on a YouTube video, is around 8 hours worth of content to be making stuff up. She has an incredible gift. Okay. So don't go out. I'm not telling you to go out there and do that. When you use wisdom, especially in the way that I'm going to set it up for you, then it could potentially lead to wealth. Now, don't just do stuff just say, "Oh, I can get the money," because that's not what we're talking about. That you'll see. So just stick with me. All right. So, like I said, I didn't watch the 54-part series or the 8 hours. My little sister introduced me to this, and then of course, there are certain people that come across my feed and they do like little synopsis of what's happening in pop culture, and that's kind of how I keep a pulse on like what's happening without digging too deep into it. So if I say something that wasn't fully accurate, I'm giving you that disclaimer, and I'm just talking, from a high level observation of what I've seen so far. So again, I did not watch all 8 hours. I think total, just so I can get bits and pieces, I maybe watched maybe 5 minutes. And if you know anything about TikTok, that's still a lot of time. All right. So we're going to connect Reesa Teesa's journey to what happened in Luke chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. Now, this is the story of the demon-possessed man. In Matthew chapter 8, it says that there were two men. And so some people might say, "Oh, the Bible contradicts itself." But no, if you know anything about the Gospels, I think Matthew, Mark, Luke, I think John, they all share the same types of stories, but from different perspectives. One of them may go into more detail. The other one will just give you a brief overview. And then just wherever they were in the story, they were eyewitnesses. So it's their own account. But overall, the stories are the same. So I am going to read the story. This is not to insult your intelligence, but some of you just may be walking off and you're listening and you may not be going to pick up your actual Bible or your app. But I encourage you, every scripture that I give you, go and read for yourself so that you can be a hearer and doer of the word on your own, and don't take anything I say as gospel because it's the book. Read it on your own. I'll do something about that later, how many of us are missing out on things because we haven't read the Bible. We've just been taking what the preachers have been saying and not on our own. And we wonder why life is the way it is or not. But that's another topic. All right. So Luke chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. King James Version. Make sure. Yeah, King James Version. And they arrived at the country of the Gadarenes, which is over against Galilee. And when he went forth to land, there met him out of the city a certain man which had devils long time and wore no clothes. Is Ware. No clothes, neither abode in any house, but in tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him, and with a loud voice said, what to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God Most High? I beseech thee, torment me not. For he commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, for oftentimes it had caught him, and when he was kept bound with chains and in feathers, and he brake the bands and was driven off the devil into the wilderness. And when Jesus asked him, saying, what is thy name? And he said, Legion. So if you watch the series, you can kind of understand why this story jumped out to me to connect with the story. And if you don't know, I'll share with you in a little bit. Because many devils were entered into him, and they besought him that he would not command them to go out into the deep. And there was there an herd of many swine feeding on the mountain, and they besought him that he would suffer them to enter into them. And he suffered them. Then went the devils out of the man and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down to a steep place in the lake and were choked. And they that fed them saw what was done, fled and went and told it in the city and in the country. Then they went out to see what was done and came to Jesus and found a man out of whom the devils were departed, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed in his right mind. And they were afraid. They also which saw it told them by what means he was possessed by the devils was healed. And then the whole multitude of the country of the Gadarenes around about besought him to depart from them, for they were taken with great fear and went up into the ship. He went up into the ship and returned back again. Now the man out of whom the devils were departed besought him that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, return to thine own house and show how great things God hath done unto thee. And he went his way and published throughout the whole city how great things Jesus had done unto him. Now, so I'm reading the Bible through the year. When I study out of King James Version because that's the one I grew up on. When I'm reading it to really get a deeper understanding, I go to the Amplified. And when I'm like, what are they really, really saying? I go to the Passion Translation or the Message. But I read to you out of the King James Version. If you're like, I still can't get with that, go read it through the Amplified Version. So that was Luke chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. All right, so there are characters in this story that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the people. We're going to talk about the man, Legion, and Jesus. Okay, so we are going to focus on the people's response to what happened with Legion. Now, if you didn't know, that's the name that Ms. Reesa Teesa gave to her husband, ex-husband, as she was telling the story. She didn't give his real identity. She called him Legion. And from what I've gathered, the name fit. I don't know the man. Again, I didn't watch everything, but from what people gathered, Legion fit. And Legion here means many devils inside or many spirits inside of a person. There was a lot of them. So verse 27, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'm going to go to the Amplified for just like quick notes so that you can all follow along with me. So in verse 27, Jesus stepped out and the man met him. So phone dropped. So according to Miss Reesa Teesa, she was minding her own business and stepped out a man. She met a man. So again, this is just my interpretation and what was revealed, or I feel well, I know it was downloaded to me by Holy Spirit, because there was no way I was going to connect this story, especially from a story I really don't know anything about, to what I was reading that day in the Bible. So stick with me. It is going to make sense. I promise. This is why I have my notes, so I know the end. So stick with me. So Reesa met a man just like Jesus met a man. Reesa met him filled with lies and spirits, and Jesus met the same man. And so we see in verse 28 that the man was being tormented. He wasn't in his right mind. There were things that were going on. So, not to make light of a situation, if you ever witness anybody being possessed, like in real life, it is not a good thing to be around. Something that you can liken to, if you ever gone to mental institutions and you see people how they just yell out and scream, or they might be hurting themselves and things like that. That's similar. Now, I'm not saying those people are possessed, but it's kind of the similar kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way the man was acting with Ms. Reesa Teesa, but there was an internal battle, a lot of things that were going on. I mean, we all have it, but the way I heard that she described, his was like on 1,000, similar to why she calls him Legion. All right, so in verse 28, they were bound and chained together. So the man, they tried to keep him bound and chained. And so Risa and her ex-husband, they eventually got married. So that chaos and torment, they were bound together. There are some times when we see situations, we see the craziness happen, but yet we get bound and put ourselves and attach ourselves to the situation. And in a sense, Jesus attached himself to the situation because he could have kept going on about his business, but he stayed there to see what was going to deal with the situation at hand. So this was during the shutdown, the global shutdown, the global pandemic. So again, put yourself, if you remember, if you're around at that time and remember what happened in 2020, 2021, the world literally shut down. So this was a true bound, and we are stuck together. We're quarantined together. So things like we are locked up in this situation. So in verse 30, we drop down and we talk about when Jesus asked the name of the man. Now, Jesus, being Jesus, knew that he wasn't talking to the man that was possessed. He was talking to the spirits inside of the man. So you got to know what you're dealing with and who you are talking to, because we do not wrestle with flesh and blood. We wrestle with spirits in the spiritual realm, if you want to really know the truth. So Jesus wasn't talking to the man. He was talking to the spirits within the man. Ms. Reesa Teesa, she didn't meet, I don't know his real name. I think it's like Jerome or something with J. She didn't meet J. She met with Legion. And that's what the man responded in the story. He said, we are Legion, because many demons have entered us. We are many. That's what one of the translations say, that we are many. So this isn't just your regular, oh, the devil influenced me, the devil made me do it, which that's not true. Or, people that, you hear people, a spirit is operating behind a person. This was some high level demonic activity. And just so you know that there can be people who look like they're functioning, got a lot of high level demonic activity that torment them on a daily basis. And you may not actually see it manifested, like, acting the way certain people do when you think of demon possession, but internally. And to me, that's like one the most dangerous one, because at least if I see you flipping and flopping in the fire and out the fire and acting crazy, I know to stay away. But if I can't see it, then that's more dangerous, in my opinion. All right, so then I said, this is the interesting thing. So we see that when Ms. Reesa Teesa gets with her legion, and what happens when Jesus confronts this legion in the story, this is where now we get into spilling the tea. These are the two pathways that spilling the tea can either lead. There are two pathways. I'll leave it at that, because we're going to get down and break down the different paths. I wanted to give you that backstory because I believe we've all been somebody in this story, either been the group of people, either been the man that was possessed. If we tell them the truth, we may have been a form of legion. And we've been Miss Reesa Teesa. Well, Miss Reesa Teesa is like the man. So we've all played a certain part. But if you are a born again believer, you can play the role of Jesus for somebody else. Not like, you are their savior, but being able to speak at the root of what's happening to someone, being able to speak life in someone and impart your wisdom. So don't take what I said out of context. Like, no, you are not Jesus. You're not the savior. But if you're a believer, he's given us this his power and authority to do the things that he did and even greater. That's in the Bible. Go read it. All right, so two different paths that you can take when it's time to spill the tea. It can be a scarcity mindset or it can be a wealth mindset. And this is why I said how spilling the tea can lead to wealth. And so so I'll get into spilling the tea. We already defined wealthy, and to have the mindset. You have to have the mindset of wealth before wealth can come into your hands. And that's where a lot of the work take place. And what I have learned is making the money is not hard. It is generating, getting your mind prepared to understand that you can generate a lot of money fast, and what to do with that money and work on who you are with that money. It's a lot of behind the scenes because the tangible money isn't the hard part. Once you understand the challenging part, which is the mindset work, the tangible resources aren't that hard. And so the scarcity mindset is thinking about limited resources, thinking that you're not going to be able to provide for yourself. The belief that this is it, this is the best that I can do, or, well, as soon as like the easy come, easy go type of mentality, or only certain people can get to certain levels. This is just a lot of life I've been dealt with. That's a scarcity mentality. I was going back and forth of whether I want to use poverty or the a poor mentality, but I landed on scarcity. If you want to use poverty and poor in this scenario, look up the words and do what works for you. So the man was delivered. So Jesus delivered the man. He cast out legion into the pigs. And the legion, just to give you some kind of context, these weren't just like, my family had a farm back in the day in another state. And so I know what pigs on a farm are like. I think the most we had maybe 20 or 30, and that was still a lot of pigs. But in this story, there were at least 2,000 pigs. 2,000 pigs. Wrap your mind around that. So the demons that possessed the man, legion, they asked, can we be put into the pigs? So those were at least 2,000 spirits operating in this man. Like, I don't even think we can grasp that concept. So if you just read off the story, you may be thinking like 5, 6 pigs, or the max maybe 50 pigs. That's still a lot. But to wrap your mind around how tormented this man was, 22,000, potentially 2,000 spirits in this man. Also, legion, I forgot what, I didn't write it down, but it's also in the Bible where Jesus talks about legion on the good side, where he can have 12 legions of angels come to his disposal for what he was going through. I think that's when they were trying to crucify him, or right before they're trying to crucify him. So 12, and the Bible character, like the breakdown behind that was at least 5,000 was in a legion. So Jesus saying, oh, I got 12 on speed dial, about 60,000 angels can come at his rescue with just his voice. So we'll say on the low end, 2,000. On the high end that I found so far in the Bible, it can be up to 60,000. Either way, one is too many. Okay. So that's giving you the context. So the man was delivered from that. So can you imagine the peace of mind and how he was feeling? Because when you read it later on, it says he was clothed in his right mind. I won't get into what that means because he wasn't born that way. Something happened, but we won't get into that. So the calmness and the peace that this man finally had after flipping and flopping in fire and water, breaking chains, running out in the wilderness, hollering and screaming all through the night, he is chill, cool, calm, and collected. Have you been in a situation where it has literally, you've been tormented? We've all, I believe, felt that way, where we can't sleep at night. Our thoughts are going like, how are we going to do this? Or there's a weight of like depression or whatever it is. We've all been tormented in our mind. And either when we cast it over to Jesus and truly give him our burdens and he give us that peace, or the situation has been resolved, there's a weight lifted off your shoulders and you can woosah. So imagine your whatever you felt that way times 1,000. That is what this man was feeling. When Ms. Reesa Teesa shared her story, I'm pretty sure that a weight lifted off. I went to go watch the end because I needed some information I'm going to share with you later. I can literally hear it in her voice from the first few minutes that I watched to like the last part. You can literally see the weight lifted. And then I seen some pictures of her on the other side of this story, because now it's been years later, she looks like a totally different person. So she also was delivered. Okay, so that is the background. Now, the two pathways, because I didn't forget about that. Remember that the scarcity mindset and then the wealth mindset of what does it mean to spill the tea. So this is between verses 34 and 38 in Luke chapter 8. So the path one, if you either spilled your tea or not spilling your tea, like sharing. Let me back up. Let me see, where do I say this? Okay, so if I didn't say this, when I say spilling the tea, that means you're sharing your wisdom, you're sharing your life lessons of what happened to you. You're either sharing a way for somebody to get a desired results, or you're sharing a warning so someone can avoid the path that you took. So you're sharing your ways about something, or you're sharing your warnings about something, your advice about something that's going to benefit someone else. So that is what wisdom, that is what I'm talking about, spilling your tea. You're not gossiping. You're not out here just telling your business just for somebody to listen, even though people are making money like that, because attention is the new currency. But I talk about that in a later class. But in this case, we're sharing, like, I went through this horrible, horrible situation. These are the lessons that I learned. I'm either going to inspire you to not go down this path, or if you've gone down this path, I am going to encourage you to show you that there is a way out. And look at me, I survived it, and so can you. All right. But then there are people who may have seen what has happened in your situation and they go tell it another way. So we'll say those people are like the herdsmen and the townspeople. Or you could be that person to where the way you share your story about what happened to you, you're still on a scarcity path. So just because you share your story, if your mindset is not right, it's not going to turn out the way you expect for it to turn out. So the herdsmen, the men who saw that all of their pigs went into the water, they were telling the story back to the townspeople. They operated out of a place of fear. Scarcity does that. You operate out of a place of fear. They are also operated out of a place of anger. Why? Because Jesus just threw all their money. Well, he didn't throw it, but Jesus told the pigs were their income. That was how they made their living. And they saw all of their money, even if the pigs were worth $1. I'm pretty sure they were worth more, but that's $2,000 that just went off. And so $2,000 of income was probably more than that, because it's the income, the food, the trading, whatever. I don't think they ate the pigs. I don't know. But anyway, all of that just went off. Like, all of your money, because of a situation that happened, just went to waste, is gone, is disappeared. And so yeah, you're pretty upset because the situation that you experienced caused that to happen, even though you weren't directly involved. The herdsmen were over there minding their own business because they used to the man. They used to that chaos. You know, that he was around them. They were like, oh, there he goes again. But they still doing their thing with the pig. And then here comes Jesus. Hey, Legion, go to the pig. And Legion asked, can we go over there? And Jesus like, yeah, go. So I'm over here minding my business, and you gonna send the spirits into my money with my business, my family, what I got going on? Yeah, I'm upset because now your foolishness done interrupted me. So that's how they went to the townspeople out of anger. They were also angry because Jesus was causing a scene. Because I'm pretty sure Legion had magnified when Jesus arose. Because they know who Jesus is. And that's another thing. The demons be knowing Jesus. And those of us who are believers, we don't even come to Jesus out of reverence and all like the demons. So we got to understand, yes, there are demonic forces that are powerful, but we can never forget the power of Jesus Christ. Like, don't forget who I am. So the demons recognize, like, hey, what you doing over here? We were minding our own business. Why are you over here bothering us? That's pretty much what they were saying, because Jesus came over there. Legion been having a field day, and they're like, "What you doing, Jesus?" So I'm pretty sure the man was acting really out of the norm. All right. So then, you have the mindset of begging your help to leave. The people, the herdsmen and the people, they begged Jesus to leave. Now they saw this man get delivered. And instead of them saying, okay, I'm not that bad, but I still got some stuff going on over here. Can you help me? They begged him to go about your business. They rejected the help. So you could be spilling your tea or sharing with somebody, and somebody could literally be there trying to help you. And you're like, no, because I just want to tell you about the pain and I don't want your help or advice. You listen to me tell you what's happening. So I want you to kind of like, it can be subtle. Okay. The scarcity mindset can be subtle. The other part is they were more afraid of the free man than the demon possessed man. Now, you can read all the different gospels to get this understanding, but they were operating with this man. They were going on about their business. He was over here flipping and flopping in the fire and the water, screaming out. Can you imagine? It's nighttime and you hear all this screaming and yelling and hollering, and it got to the point to where, well, that's what happens around this time. And you've gotten so adjusted and used to the chaos. But then they were upset, like, oh no. Well, okay, this is how I'm imagining it because of the backstory. He wasn't born this way. There's something that happened. What I'm thinking is maybe he was a certain way. Maybe he had a way of doing things. Maybe he was in power or position. I don't know, but maybe he was a man of some substance, right? And maybe they were like, gosh, I wish something would happen to him or whatever. And something did, which caused him to be possessed. They were more they were better off with him acting that way. So think about you. You were somebody of important stature, whatever. You came onto hard times, and people prefer you to be down in your bad situation because they remember who you were. You may, during your trial and tribulation, forget who you are inside because of the situation is so like, you're in the throes of it and you forget, but the people didn't forget. So they rather see you down and in this foolishness and in this demon possessed up there hanging out with Legion than for you to be free. And so a scarcity mindset, if you're talking from, so two things, if you're talking from a place of still being bound mentally as you're sharing your story, then that's not going to help anybody. And then you got to be careful with the people that you're telling it to. If they are saying, think like, because people, you'll be surprised. People like, well, why are you trying to get out of that? If your situation is not as bad, or don't even worry about it, you're good. We all just go through certain things. That's true, but that don't mean we all supposed to stay there. So just be careful of the position that you're sharing your story, and then who you're sharing with, and the advice or the words that are coming back to you. So that scarcity mindset. And also, I said that they prefer the drama. There are some people, again, they like when you are not at your best because, again, the herdsmen were still working and doing their thing. The people in the towns were still going on about their day. We don't know fully what this man was before he got possessed, but they were better off with the chaos happening at night, the chaos and the shrieking and watching the spectacle. They became accustomed to that. They were like, this is fine. Some people like you in your mess. Some people like you in your foolishness. Some people like when you come to them and gossip and bring all of that drama because they may have peace, but they want a little bit of the ratchetness. So they like when you act like that. So they're not trying to help you. All right. And then I said how they shared the story, it was in a negative perspective. Like I said, fear, he made us lose income, this, that, and the other. It is horrible. So, no, deliverance. This man, Jesus, that's a bad dude. Stay away. That's why he has to go from the city. All right. That scarcity mindset. Now, the second path. Now, Ms. Reese Teesa could have done that way. Again, maybe she was like that throughout the parts of the story, but I don't think she was, because on the other side, homegirl was just with what's her name? Robbins from Good Morning America, and she on the cover of some stuff. So obviously, to me, I think she had the wealth mindset. So I say he's a delivered man. So so there's the possessed man, and then he was the man who was possessed, and then the man who was delivered, because we're not our situations, okay? So the man who was delivered, he wanted to leave the town. He was like, and this is what I think, again, he knew who he was. He had to be somebody before. And the fact that they let him act the fool and do all of the things without helping him, because who knows how long he's been that way. So when he got back clothed in his right mind, like, you get out your situation and you take some time and you like, now I done been around these people and not one time did they help me, or they knew how to help me and they didn't say a word. Let's say this was true. They knew about this man named Jesus, and they didn't tell me to go cross, because Jesus was across the water, across the pond. They didn't tell me or go send for him to come to me. Like, really? So even I'm pretty sure Miss Reesa was like, I could have been out this situation, or I'm on the other side and I'm looking back like, this person didn't even try to come help me. So you have to be clothed in your right mind. You got to sit and be able to, once you come out of your situation, you got to do some self-reflection. But this is where you don't want to tip over to the scarcity mindset side, because you don't want to have any anger, bitterness, or resentment either. So you reflect, because then you turn that into, all right, how can I spin this for a lesson learned so I don't be upset and angry with the people? So the man wanted to leave because he was like, either one, these people done tried it, like they had me out here acting a fool, or two, I don't know how life is gonna be with me now that I have this new perspective. It's almost like, this is not the same, but when I used to work in the school system, and then I went to go to grad school full time to get my PhD, and then I graduated and I went back to like the district level for a little bit. And I was like, I cannot operate in this same space. Even though I spent time in this space, I went away and that felt like the worst thing ever, but it wasn't, going to school full time. And then coming back, it was like, I don't fit here. I can't stay here. These are the same people. I worked with some of these people before I got my doctorate, but because of the experience and the exposure that I had, I was like, I don't fit. So this man is like, I don't fit. So you have to understand that and be okay with that. And that's part of a wealth mindset when you're spilling the tea. And then I said that Jesus told him to stay. And this is where the spilling the tea for this man, because sometimes when you're in a scarcity mindset, you're not trying to learn the lessons. You just want to go tell everything that has happened to you. You just want to go tell and run and all of that, right? But that doesn't help. You want to take some time and reflect and say, well, what is happening? Let me get back and get all my senses together and then go share. So Jesus allowed him to sit, calm down, get, relax. And then the man tried to leave, and Jesus was like, no, I need you to stay here so you can go tell your story about what happened. Okay. So he told him to stay and share what happened to him. And the man shared in a way that saved his country, his nation. And then that's where we start seeing that the gospel is being spread to the Gentiles, who weren't the Jews at the time. They were the people, the Gentiles. So read the two camps, Jews and the Gentiles. Okay. So the way he shared his story wasn't from a place of fear. It was lessons learned. It was this is how I would probably how I was before. This is what I experienced during this time. And this man delivered me, how quick he delivered me, what has happened to me internally. And he shared the before, after doing for ways for people to encourage and to experience, like, see about this man named Jesus. And let me tell you what he did, not just for my physical situation, but for my internal soul as well. So there were people in the city who knew who he was, experienced all that chaos, and then now to see him where he was in a better position than he was before, they're like, oh, well, the way he shared it, we don't need to hear from the herdsmen and some of the other people, because obviously they aren't telling the full story. This is why it was important for the man to share, and why it kind of was like, Jesus, don't leave me hanging. And it kind of was like, well, Jesus, why can't he come and be a disciple? He wanted to follow Jesus. He wanted to learn more about Jesus. He was like, no, this wasn't just a regular, deliverance. You literally changed my life from the inside out. I must know more about you. And I believe because Jesus felt that fire and that passion, he was like, no, I need that. You're the spark, and I need that to run like a wildfire, so you can your testimony can spark that into others. Because if people heard about how you were delivered, let's say like they heard about the doctor, because Jesus is the ultimate physician, and the people are telling you about these crazy things about the doctor, and then the doctor's like, no, but I'm really good, I really did help somebody. It doesn't matter what the doctor says. You have to hear, a lot of times we have to hear from the patient who say, no, I am the patient. Y'all saw how I was. I can tell you from firsthand experience. Now you can believe this man about the doctor. And that's how it works. That's why the way that you spill your tea with the wealthy mindset draws people, I'll say in this case, to Christ, to Christ, because that's the ultimate. If you're a believer, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And the tangible part, or the byproduct of that, is can lead to wealth. And I'll say that his did lead to wealth because of the wealth of the impact and influence that he had with the people. I don't know what else happened after him, but he's recorded in the Bible. So that means there is something that took place, and it was more than just what happened in that town. It spread it a lot, and that was where a ministry started. One thing I did not write down, but what I will share, and why I'm connecting it to Miss Reesa Teesa, is because there's a reason why we don't know this man's name. And what I've learned throughout my studying of the Bible is whenever we really don't see a name, not saying that we can't do the things of the named people in the Bible, but when we don't see a name, God is really letting us know that is literally anybody, like, regardless of who it is, regardless of stature, status, background, you too can have this experience. If you experience this, if you're in the similar situation, you too can have this victory and overcome this. So there's no excuse, because sometimes it's like, well, I'm not Moses, or I don't have it like, Solomon or King David or things like that. But when we see unnamed people, God is like, all right, you tried it, no excuse, because we don't even know who this person is. A lot of times we may not even know their background, and we see their victory. So I have here that, like the man who went through and told his testimony about what happened to Jesus, his story has been published over and over. And again, in that region, that's where the gospel took off. The same with Miss Reesa Teesa. We see that the the byproduct the byproduct of her spilling the tea, she's getting more exposure, she's getting known, she is getting actual income for sharing her stories, and she did it in a way to help others. I did see on some comments like, whoa, I call all cap, meaning that she's lying, and I hope you get rich from it. Like I said, I'm not encouraging anybody to lie. I hope that she's not lying, and people who do all that and lie is not sustainable. But let's take that out of there. Yeah, I do hope she gets the money and fame. I hope it's true. But that's for anybody who shares things that have happened to them in such a way that it helps someone else, that they do in a way obtain wealth, however it is, whether that's through coaching, consulting, sharing the story, media, somebody paying you to speak, whatever. I'll get into those 6 skills of things that you can do later on. But I really do hope that that shouldn't be the goal. Like, I'm going to share my story so I can get wealth and get famous. You want to share your story, your lessons learned, your wisdom. You want to spill your tea with a wealth mindset so that it will help others, and let all those other things be a byproduct. Let your heart be pure. All right. So I also have here and said that another thing is, one way why it's an unnamed man, and why Reesa Teesa, I believe why Reesa Teesa went so viral, is because we all have had challenges and rough times and embarrassing moments, and I can't believe I did that. I have some stories, and this has inspired me to even share even more, because it's like, okay, if that person can share it, so can I. Or my situation is not that bad, and if they were able to put theirs out there, then I know I can share mine. You may not have been possessed with legion, but maybe you had a little bit of torment. You're like, well, at least I don't have legion, so I feel more comfortable sharing what I have. I may not have had to deal with a crazy man who lied, took all my money, and did all of this, but I have had to deal with some betrayal. She admitted, I ignored all the flags, and people are like, aha, see, that's what happened. But how many of you can say I've ignored some flags as well, and you giving me the courage to speak out? Or the thing that I saw when I was going through some of the comments were like, thank you for sharing, because I thought it was just me. I'm tearing up because how many times you've been in a situation and you're like, man, is it just me? Am I crazy? Am I the only one? Am I dumb? Am I stupid? I am too smart for this. How could I allow myself to be in this situation? And by somebody sharing or spilling their tea with the wealth mindset, and they're able to say, I too had those thoughts. I'm smart, I'm brilliant, I'm all of this, and I still made those mistakes. But guess what? I came out on the other side. So learn from me. And that's what you want to do when you spill your tea, so it can benefit for others. Now, she is slightly entertaining from what I've seen. So if you have that type of personality, let your personality shine, because there's a reason why God allowed you to go through what you did, being the person who you are. Now, we're not going to get into that. God calls this. That's another topic for another day. But overall, he is in control, and he knew what you're going to go through. But now you have the choice. Is it going to be, you're going to spill the tea with a scarcity mindset or with a wealth mindset? All right. So that is what I've shared with you. I believe that if you do it the right way, it can work for you. I'm not saying that you're going to get on Good Morning America, but I do know that you can encourage and inspire someone else. Even if it's one person, I believe that we all have more than one person we can inspire and encourage and help. That is your ultimate goal, because it's also wrong for you to hoard that information and to hoard that wisdom. And we'll get into that over the next 6 series about how to use the skills. There are 6 skills I'm going to talk about. We talked a little bit about it today, but we're going to go more in depth about mindset, writing, speaking, teaching and training, showcasing, which is video, and then systematizing. I believe Ms. Reesa Teesa incorporated a combination of those things, and that's what led to her spilling the tea, led to wealth. And I believe that can be the same for you. So we see that from the man who was delivered, that sharing your testimony is powerful. It is not, and I'm going to say this, and some people may disagree, it is not just to talk about your story over and over and just share your testimony. I believe, especially for a lot of us who are Christian, but it's not just for Christians. There are people who are literally doing this that don't talk about God or anything. They literally have become multimillionaires. They've been major influencers because they're sharing things that have happened, things that they like, things that they've learned. They're sharing their wisdom in some kind of way, and they are reaping the benefits of it. So a lot of us grew up in church with just share your testimony and that's it. No, I believe that there is a system and a structure for us to be able to do that, for us to benefit and obtain wealth. And that's what I'll be talking about in the next 6 videos. So that's all I have for you. Again, if you're just tuning in, we read from Luke chapter 8, verses 26 to 34. You can also read the story 39. You can also read the story in Matthew and Mark. I think John has it, but Matthew and Mark for sure, so you can get the full understanding. And that, my friends, is how spilling the tea can lead to wealth. So don't just watch Miss Reesa Teesa. Learn some of the things about your life of what you can share with others. Before I go, I do want to say this because somebody did a video and they were like, well, I tried to watch somebody else share their story and it wasn't the same. You could never be Reesa Teesa. And that could be discouraging. If you're doing it in the way because you want to copy what she's doing, not from a place of how she did it, just so you can get the outcome that she obtained, that's not going to work for you. But if you're genuinely sharing, then share your story. If it's literally the same way and yours end up being 54 parts and you're sharing yours, just share it. Especially if God told you to share it, share your story and become detached from the outcome. Focus on how can this help somebody else and have your wealth mindset and share from that perspective. And even if people come to you in the comments, oh, you just trying to be like such and such, you'll know from a pure heart that that's not the case, and God will take care of the rest. So I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I can't do mine because she did hers. No, you just got to watch your perspective on how you're doing it and your approach. All right. So that's what I wanted to share. I remember that comment. I want to share that with you. All right. So thank you so much for listening and learning with me. If you like this vibe, go ahead and subscribe, especially so you can get notified from when I do the next 6-part series. And thank you so much. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you on the other side. Bye.